I'm happy to look at it. Or if you're telling me you want me to look and see, just because other cities do it doesn't mean that it's going to be in compliance. But I'm not saying that there might not be some new law, but that's what the status of the law was last time I looked. I just looked at
Okay.
No, he's home from college. Amy just graduated middle school, and he's come by.
Okay, call the meeting to order. This is the City of Hannibal official council agenda. It's Tuesday, June the 20th, 2023. We're in the council chambers at 7 p.m. I would ask the clerk to call the roll.
Councilmember Beach.
Here.
Councilmember McCoy.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Dobson.
Here.
Councilmember Franke.
Present.
Councilmember Phillips.
Here.
And Councilmember Welch.
Here. Okay, there being a quorum present, I call the meeting to order. I'll give the invocation, if you'd stand, please. God of wisdom, we seek your help today. Come and let your wisdom fall upon us, O Lord, as we gather for this meeting. Give us clarity so that we can effectively tackle each part of today's agenda, reveal problem areas, and show us the best solution that will apply. Point our eyes to every positive outcome since our last meeting, and let these favorable results and developments encourage every heart in this room. Dear God, help us apply your wisdom as we decide on certain matters and make plans. This we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Ask the Hannibal Fire Department to lead us in the pledge, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, first thing is the approval of the agenda. I have a motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Approval of payroll and claims the first half of June 2023.
Motion to approve.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Tammy Riley Steampunk Festival, request for street closures. Friday, September the 1st through Monday, September the 4th, 9 a.m. to 10 p.m.
Yes, sir.
Good evening.
Hi. I would like to ask for the street closures to happen around 8 a.m. if possible.
That would be arranged with Mr. Dorian back here in the corner,
Already?
but that could probably be possible.
Okay.
Everything's in order. Entrance.
Okay. Everything's in order with the exception of the insurance. It's probably a little early for that. So are there any questions of the council?
You just want it to start at 8 instead of 9, correct?
Yes.
The packet says 9, so just to make
Yes.
sure that we get that.
Last year, we kind of ran into more of a safety issue because people were already there early.
Sure.
So.
Sure.
And the insurance, I should have within the next week.
Okay, just get it with the clerk and shouldn't be a problem then.
Okay.
Motion to approve pending insurance?
Second. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much. Carl Ball, 8954 County Road 422.
Thank you. My name's Carl Ball. I've lived in Hannibal all my life. I've lived at the current location for 30 years, and I receive no city services at all. I'm here for the same reason that some other concerned citizens have been here. That is that there's trouble here in River City. We are embarrassed, frustrated, and concerned about what's been taking place in these chambers. In recent months, there has been an impeachment process that was dismissed, building inspector leave, the city clerk terminated, and a mayor resigned. Something's not right. These chambers, both elected and non-elected officials, are administered an oath to represent the citizens of Hannibal. You need to put aside personal agendas and good old boy practices and do what is best for the citizens of Hannibal. The mayor and the city council, as elected officials, work for the citizens of Hannibal. On the other hand, the city manager is not an elected official or an elected position, but she's hired by the city manager or the mayor, and the city council. And it's not the other way around. Unfortunately, there has been a failure to understand this. What I see is this dysfunctional group of individuals that cannot or will not work together and are only looking out for their best interests. This was clearly apparent in the recent impeachment process that was dismissed in the continuous request for a monthly report from the city manager. In both cases, what started off as a way to improve better business practices and hold people accountable turned into a personal vendetta to sling mud at one of the city council members. The requirement for a monthly report from the city manager is a no-brainer. Way too much time has been spent on this. This time that could have been spent on something else. The monthly report is a business tool. It's there to measure what you've done right and what you need to improve on. The report is a requirement for the city manager position, not for the individual per se that sits in that position. No matter who the city manager is, they are required to submit a report. Failure to submit one is a failure to perform their duties. Recent monthly reports haven't been issued, thus a failure to perform, and this council has allowed it to happen. When you miss one report, there should be a reason why. There should be a report on why that report is being missed. Now because a couple of members are asking for that report, you, the council, are saying that they are harassing the city manager, which is completely wrong. Over the last few meetings, speakers have expressed the need for a monthly report from the city manager. I've personally talked to over 20 people, both inside the ward I live in and outside the ward. All of them that I've talked to have expressed their concern, say yes, there needs to be a monthly report. Maybe if the city council members would get out and talk to their people, they would find out what their citizens of their wards feel. Maybe I'm completely off base here, but the people that I've talked to all believe there needs to be some kind of a report that the citizens of Hannibal can reach out to and find out what's going on in this chamber. I could spend more time talking about other topics such as permits, building inspector's office, city engineer, wedge between the city and the Board of Public Works, but my time's running out, and that's another joke. I guess my message to this group is that being the mayor, a council member, or a city manager is not a prestigious position. Thank you. But you need to get down off your pedestal. You need to go out and check with your people, see what they want, listen to them, see what their concerns are. There's a lot of issues out there. Safety, potholes, not being able to bring new businesses in. You need to look at this kind of stuff. Talk to your people, follow the charter, follow your ordinances, and understand the process. Remember, there are 6 council members and 1 mayor that report to the citizens, and the city manager reports to that group. To keep things transparent, share information, work together, and follow up, I think it would be good. You'd see a lot more people coming up and saying thanks for the work that you're doing. But right now, this is just nothing but a circus. Thank you, Carl. Thank you, Carl.
Jeff Harden, 1021 Center Street, safety tax.
Hello again, Mr. How are you doing?
Hello. Distinguished members of
Sorry I botched your
the...
name.
Pardon me?
Sorry I botched your name.
Oh, no problem. Good evening, distinguished members of the City Council. The last couple board meetings, you've been discussing a safety tax. And I would like to recap that, and I would like you to understand that I'm neither for or against any of these proposals. However, I would like you to think about this before you do it. First, we had a proposal of a 1/4-cent sales tax. The last city council meeting, Mayor, you proposed a real and property tax, proposed at about 10%. You said that would be about $5 to $10 on your property.
That was 43 on mine.
I'm going back to exactly what you said in the council. Okay, so anyway, what I'd like you to be aware of is when the Board of Public Works came before the city council and asked for a property tax, there were people in town who came in front of you and said, this is not the right time for that. That would cost us way too much. I would propose, of course, that those people would probably still think this is not a good time for that. And I would propose maybe $5, $10, $15, which would be doable probably for everybody and would help raise money. Now, I mean, I don't know the exact budget or anything, so I don't know, but a flat tax. Just keep in mind, if you do a real or property tax, and then you come back and ask for more property taxes for the Board of Public Works project, people are going to get tired of a tax on a tax, okay? You're going to tax them and tax them to death. What I would like to ask is there a tourism tax in town?
There's a bed tax for the hotels, yes.
Okay. Could we use that?
That runs the Board of Tourism.
Okay. How about Proposition 1, 3% tax. And I'm going to quote the proposition, a citywide sales tax of 3% on all tangible personal property retail sales of adult use marijuana sold in the city of Hannibal. It kind of makes sense that after all, we're asking for funds for the police department.
We've already done that, sir.
What do you mean? There was nothing in the proposition that said what you were going to do with that.
That's true. It goes to the general fund.
Okay, so why can't we use that for the police department? Makes sense, wouldn't it? After all, they do fight crimes with people who, maybe smoke a little too much pot.
Sure.
Okay. That will not be a very large sum of money from what the indications we're getting right now. We cannot disclose how much because the state of Missouri does not allow you to disclose sales tax for a particular business, but it will not move the needle on.
Right, no, that's fine, but it's a little bit, it's something. That's what I'm saying. There are different ways to do this. You can use different sources, but before you just decide on one particular thing, what I would ask is that you give this a little more thought. So that, the citizens are happy with that, really. I mean, you can't just go to them and say, oh, it's a safety tax. Well, it's a tax. They're not going to see safety. They're going to see tax. And that's the main thing. So please choose wisely. And I'll take comments or questions if you have any.
In my illustration, mine was 10%, and based upon my 1,300 square foot house, it ran about $43 a year, or $3.58 a month, which would have raised about $220,000.
Okay. I'm just saying, don't put it out of range for people who have larger properties. Like came to you and said, hey, with the Board of Public Works tax, we can't do that. So again, please choose wisely. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm sorry, did anybody have any other questions of? No? Okay.
Thank you.
April Azate, questions for the council?
Just like last meeting, when you answer any questions, if you all could do me a favor and speak into the microphone so everybody can hear you. Public service is a public trust requiring you to place loyalty to the Constitution, the laws, and ethical principles above private gain. Adherence to ethical standards ensures local government officials are held accountable for their actions and decisions. Accountability is crucial for maintaining transparency and preventing corruption. Over the last several months, many city officials have been exposed and shown their true colors to the public. Many people in the community feel like we simply can't trust several of you, which is both sickening and sad. I've researched several other cities in regards to policies and procedures, ordinances, codes of conduct, etc., and many people in the community feel like there is an extreme lack of planning on the city's part in many different things. Something extremely alarming to me is the last council meeting, Councilman Welch said that there would be no repercussions or consequences for any city officials that have done any wrongdoing. Why do we not have a code of ethics and conduct of public officials and public employees? Seattle actually has an exceptionally wonderful code of conduct, all the way from conduct of council members, conduct of board, commission, and committee members, violations and penalties, all the way down to false charges and allegations and the violation for that. Additionally, Councilman Welch, didn't you say last meeting that asking the city manager to do a monthly report was harassment? Correct me if I'm wrong, but I do believe you voted yes in favor of this twice and flip-flopped back and forth a couple times. So when you voted yes, would you consider that harassment?
I'm still not answering questions. Thank you.
Hey, April, real quick.
Yes.
We do have a code of ethics, although I'm not sure it's fair to call it that. It's a subsection of the, Lisa or Melissa, please help me here, the Employee's Guide to Success that can be found on the city's website. But as you know, just with anything else, just because it exists doesn't mean it's enforced.
Okay, so my question would be, and I know what you're talking about, I believe the previous manager of the city put that out, if I remember correctly.
Maybe. I don't recall.
So my question is, if that's out there, why are we not enforcing what's there?
Good question.
Does any other council member want to answer as to why? Okay. Who decides what sunshine law requests are filled and who has the authority to withhold information? This is probably a James question.
I'm sorry, repeat your question, please.
Who decides what sunshine law requests are filled and who has the authority to withhold information?
The custodian of records,
Which would be who?
Me.
the city clerk.
Okay, so that was going to be one of my questions, so we'll just go ahead. So I just want to confirm, you are officially the city clerk now?
No, I'm the deputy city clerk. We don't have a city clerk, haven't had one since November. So
Oh, believe me,
have
I
been
know.
doing both
You've been
positions.
doing double duty, I'm well aware. I
I
didn't,
have been responsible for all the sunshine requests.
okay. Will we be listing a job for that to be
The
filled?
job was listed internally. And so if there's no candidate or hired from internally, then we would post it externally, which is traditionally what we do with positions in the city.
Okay. So back to, I figured we would just cover that since you had said that. In regards to the sunshine law request, are any individual council members and or the city manager able to withhold information from sunshine law request?
When I receive a sunshine request, it depends on the information you're asking for. If you're asking for information, emails between council members, information on a certain topic that perhaps our department heads or somebody else in the city will have, I will immediately make a folder of your request, and then I will send your request to whoever it's pertinent to. It may be to everybody, it may be to a couple people, but whatever you're asking is who I will send your request to, whoever I think or who should have that type of information. So I will wait for the response from them, and then everything I get. I can tell you, I mean, you and I both know we're talking a lot about a lot of the clerk things that are that are going on. A lot of that is still closed session because or still closed record because there's still so much that hasn't happened yet. I did fulfill the request. You've got the investigation report to pick up, and I mean, so I did fulfill your last request. One of the requests I couldn't fulfill. It's you know.
Well, I knew like with the open investigation that information couldn't be released, but per Missouri statute, that falls under open investigation, can't get that. But then there were things that have been withheld that I feel like shouldn't have necessarily been withheld.
Hey, April, real quick, I'll make a motion to give April an additional 5 minutes.
Sorry.
You're good.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed?
Whatever.
No.
Okay, so my question is, can it be?
Don't we need a roll call?
Someone
vote no?
You
It was
didn't have
unanimous.
yeah, it was unanimous.
Oh, okay, sorry, I misheard.
So you had said you forward it to whoever you feel like it is pertinent to get that information, or who might be the information is about. I'm not really sure.
Depending on what the subject matter is. I mean, you know, one subject matter, there may be 5 or 6 people within the city that hold that information to that subject matter. And it's my job to do, you know, your request. It's justice, and make sure that I'm getting all the information that you're entitled to. You know, I will tell you, if it is something that is, again, a lot of personal information and things recently, those requests I do try to ask James's opinion on, and he does try to give me, you know, his opinion. When we have records that are, I would just say maybe closed session, some of those records that are pertaining to an employee may always be closed. They may sometimes be open. But a lot of the reason why you're not getting, I think, what you want is because everything hasn't been resolved, and you can't release that stuff until...
Wait, stuff hasn't been resolved with the former city clerk?
Yeah, still. There's still things that still are going to have to happen by the council and things like that. So I know you feel like I'm holding information from you, but I can genuinely tell you that everything that within the law, which is what I keep telling you, that I can give you, I am giving you.
Okay. I think that clarifies. Sorry, I just don't want to waste any more time. Actually, one thing that the Board of Public Works does that I really, really like is when I've filed a sunshine law request with them, it goes to all of their board members. Slight suggestion to maybe consider when a sunshine law request comes in, maybe that's something that could go to all of the council and city manager. I don't know, just...
I believe anything that you file for the Board of Public Works through their website goes to all of their board members. That's just something they do with everything that comes from the public that's sent to anything at the board.
Well, just with certain emails only being shared with certain council members or the mayor last year, I think a way to like fix this would be if everybody got the email so everybody's informed.
Well, we got a new website about 10 weeks out, so.
So can any individual council member or the city manager specifically withhold information?
Absolutely.
Not
legally.
Okay, not legally. So I filled out a sunshine law request back in April for the attorney fees, where we were at with that. And several things were blacked out things that to me are kind of ridiculous to black out, because even if it's like showed up to court on behalf or whatever, like it's worth seeing that. But yet on several pages it says redacted per Lisa Peck.
All right, James.
So I was just kind of curious about that.
So that was at the direction of the attorney whose bill it was. It is similar to all the attorney's bills that you've received, and that is in keeping with, the Sunshine Law. Correct, James?
Probably.
It's actually not.
I don't know. Well, I'm not going to debate with you, April, but the issue is there are things which could appear on a bill which could be considered work product. I don't know the bill in question. I wasn't the attorney that reviewed it because it wasn't my bill. I can say it is not uncommon in a sunshine request for you to be made aware of the amount of time the attorney worked and also what they billed for that, because those are clearly required under the sunshine law to be released. But the type of work that was done and the specifics of what it was done, there is some position that could be work product and not be a releasable thing. In regard to the bill you're talking about specifically, I didn't review that one, so I don't know. But I have certainly seen bills that I thought were appropriately had what was done redacted because it was work product.
Gotcha. In regards to choosing not to retain the former city clerk, was there a demand letter and or letters submitted to her to the council, either from her or on behalf of her attorney?
I just want to make clear real quick, we have not submitted any demand letters to her.
No, like she has submitted to council.
To the extent that
her or on behalf of her.
Yeah, and I'm going to answer you, April. To the extent that something like that has been done, that's absolutely going to be pending litigation. The nature of what her demand might be or the nature of what the response might be, that's absolutely going to be litigation that's pending, because if she makes a demand, she's threatening to sue, and that is something that's clearly closable under the Sunshine Law. If a settlement agreement is entered into, things start to open up. But during the process of a demand letter, response, et cetera, I'm going to suggest that is going to be closable under the Sunshine Law.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Azate.
But can the council confirm whether or not one was submitted? I feel like that is allowable under the Sunshine Law.
And here's the problem. While I am the city attorney, I'm not the litigation attorney. And I don't want to take it upon myself to release information that he may consider to be part of the process and part of the work product. So I don't think it would be appropriate for the council to answer or me to answer. I think that would be for the litigation counsel to answer, and there has been litigation counsel appointed by MIRMA, by the council on the recommendation of MIRMA.
They're never here for council meetings for me to ask.
Well, I know, but I'm just telling you, what that would be.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, April.
Thanks, Mrs. Azate.
Under my name, approval of appointment for a second reading for the Hannibal Employee Benefit Trust Board, Ryan Rapp for an appointment for a term to expire May of 2024. Need a motion to approve?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Can you do a roll call on?
I don't know why she puts it in.
Okay, sure. Recommendation of reappointment to the library board for a first reading. Roy Hark, reappointment for a term to expire July of 2026. And that's just first reading. And Lisa Peck, approval of appointments.
Thank you. So this evening, I have approvals of the following appointments before you. Cammie Harson, appointment for a term to expire on July 2026. Jacob Buckman, again, July 2026. And Leanne Beard, to expire July 2026. And those are for the Park and Rec Board.
Okay. Your second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Phyllis Nelson, City Collector, budget adjustment for the last 90 days.
Good evening. This is something that I do every year. After the end of the year, I go back and adjust some line items that we may have gone over. I don't change the expenditures or anything else. I don't move money. I just do some adjustments journal entry wise and make them look a little bit better. What you all are given, though, by Jessica at the end is before I do anything. So I'm just asking permission now to do this after the end of the budget.
Okay. Bill number 23-017 to follow for a first reading.
That's not.
Oh, no,
That's not
she'll
mine.
take a.
Oh, I'm sorry.
motion
I just
and-
need-
Yep.
I'm
Sorry.
sorry.
I just need
Drop down the
approval.
line. Need a motion to approve Phyllis's request.
Motion made.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Bianca Quinn, Financial Director. Bid limits, bill number 2317 to follow first reading. I said down the line.
This is just reference to the annual bid limit increases pursuant to Section 913B of the Charter. The documentation that we found for the CPI as of December of 2022 showed a 6.5% increase. So I asked that we raise those bid limits by that amount.
Okay, that's bill number 23-017 to follow for first reading. Next item.
We have a amendment to the payroll ordinance that's here for second reading tonight. This is due to a promotion to the building inspector office, which then cascaded some promotions within the street department. And also we had a miscalculation on the visitor bureau director and office manager that we wanted to correct.
Any questions there? Bill number 23-014 to follow as amended. Next item.
Okay. The next item is the budget amendments that we need to make for the fiscal year 23 budget. Different departments were going over a little bit on their department budgets, mostly due to grants received mid-budget that we need to adjust for, and unexpected expenses that occurred during the year.
Any questions there? Bill number
Mayor
20.
Pro Tem, I just want to make sure that everybody realizes, sees that on there, that this will be a amended and an emergency reading tonight. So you will do the reading tonight and the vote tonight, and I won't bring it back. I just want to make sure that everybody knew that this is an emergency reading.
Bill number 23-019 to follow. Thank you.
Thank you, Bianca.
Paul Trenhill, Finance Director, Board of Public Works, fiscal year 2023-2024 budget and payroll.
Hey, Paul.
Hey, good evening.
How are you tonight?
Doing well. Had our board meeting earlier and just on to the next one, so.
You'll sleep well tonight.
Yeah, let's hope so. Baby will determine that. All right, good evening, Council, Mayor Pro Tem. We're here tonight to present this will be our fourth presentation of our budget for next fiscal year 24. For those that don't know the process there that we kind of go off of is we start the process in February. We present a draft to our board in March. We then do a budget workshop typically in late March, early April, and then we present our budget for final approval with the board at our April regularly scheduled meeting. So that has all occurred. All of those meetings were public and available on YouTube. So if there's anything I missed tonight, feel free to go out and look that up if you need to. But I'll start just with some key assumptions for next year. Obviously, you all know this. It's an extremely difficult time that we're in with the inflationary environment that we're seeing, supply chain issues that have impacted our daily operations. That's nothing new to anyone here, I don't doubt. So we did factor in several of these factors when compiling the budget. Revenues, we'll start with that. So what we do there for our revenues is we assume unit sales of the product that we provide, which is electric, water, and sewer services. We assume that unit sales will be flat from one year to the next. The reason we do that is because the weather in Missouri is impossible to predict. And so the best method of predicting those revenues is just to predict that the next year will be the exact same as the current year. So what you see there in the budget is approximately $3.1 million of new revenue across utility-wide. This is primarily generated from a 9.25 increase in rates in the electric fund and 3% in the water fund. Both of these rate increases would occur on October 1st of the current year. So last fall, we did retain Utility Financial Solutions, UFS, to perform a study for us. This was a follow-up to the study that they performed in 2018. And what they determined is, or what they looked at for us was a few of the impacts that we had in the current year. One was the electric fund now has a rate covenant associated with it. And with that, basically we are required to fix rates that are equal to 125% of the amount required to be paid for our debt service in any given year. So our debt service in the electric fund is $677,000 next year, which requires us to produce net revenues of $846,250 to comply with that covenant. And for those that don't know, net revenues are all of your revenues less all of your expenses, excluding depreciation and interest. And any capital expenditures do not factor into that calculation. So we're looking at the rate increase in October for a couple reasons. One, since this was determined back in April, we wanted to give our largest users adequate time to budget the increase into their budget, as it is substantial for some. The other reason is that October is typically a lower usage month for most people, so it'll make the impact a little less for those first couple months following the increase. Again, we never want to raise rates if we don't absolutely have to. However, we have to abide by the covenant in our electric fund, which, by the way, the same covenant also exists in our water and sewer funds as well. Is very commonly seen in municipal debt. The last rate increase that was done in the electric fund actually occurred on July 1st of 2015. Since that time, we've seen extreme volatility. For those that have followed the news and have seen Winter Storm Uri and several other events across our nation, the amount of power that we have compared to just 5, 10, 15 years ago has taken a different shape. Obviously, with the increase in renewables and other things, and the decrease in our baseload power, such as coal and natural gas. The way that we saw that is through our capacity costs primarily. Capacity is the amount of power that we have to have on hand to meet our peak load. And Mike, you just heard all about this just a little bit earlier, but essentially on the hottest day of the year for us, we hit that peak and we have to have that amount of power on hand to meet all of the generation that's going on throughout the entire MISO market. That cost for capacity cost approximately $70,000 a year ago. In the current year, it'll cost us $3.4 million because what we saw was that for the first time that I'm ever aware of, our supply actually outweighed our demand, and so we actually had less supply than was available to meet demand in the current year. So the same capacity for next year will cost about $2.2 million. So all in all, we're looking at about a $2.5 million increase in our purchase power in the budget that you have before you. For the water fund, UFS did recommend to us annual rate increases of 3% annually through fiscal year 2027. Again, this is primarily to stay in compliance with the rate covenants in that fund, and also takes into account the higher operating expenses associated with the GAC filtration process that went online back in 2019. So the average residential customer who uses about 4,000 gallons of water a month would see an increase of $1.49 to his or her bill.
that's per unit?
That would be if the average customer who uses 4,000 gallons a month. The per unit increase would be 3% of the usage rate that's currently in place. So the key assumptions that we use, by far, our largest expense in our budget is our purchase power. And so we look at trends, 3-year trends, and the total megawatt hours that we brought to town to meet our load. We've seen a decrease in that load of about 1% over the last 5 years, which is primarily due to efficiencies, lighting, cooling, things like that. We took a close look at Prairie State, which provides over half of our entire load, and the credits that we receive back for that. Obviously, we've factored in the volatility that we've seen in our daily pricing as well, and all sorts of other various factors that we look at for our purchase power. I did mention that the capacity that cost us $3.4 million in the current year will cost about $2.2 million next year. One of the large reasons for that is because of what happened in the current year. We did go out and hedge a significant amount of our capacity for next year in order to mitigate that volatility. And so that will represent about a 34% cost savings for us next fiscal year. For our expenses, operating expenses, we do take a look at just the general inflation rate as well as several other things. We did assume kind of a general inflation of approximately 5% for next fiscal year. But some of the other assumptions we used in our tree trimming is another significant expense of ours. 2 years ago in fiscal year 21, we spent approximately $413,000 on tree trimming. We then went on to suffer a major ice storm in January of 2021 that ended up costing approximately $275,000 in additional costs just to restore power to all our customers. Last year, we spent approximately $663,000 on tree trimming. We then experienced a major windstorm in August of 2021 that ended up costing approximately $217,000 to get everybody back to power. We then began an initiative at the beginning of this year to focus on tree trimming more in order to try to increase that reliability. And so far, we are projecting to spend about $744,000 on our tree trimming, but we've not had any major outages despite multiple large wind events in the current fiscal year. And additionally, with that, our overtime averaged about 3% and 3.72% the last 2 fiscal years in our electric fund, and so far this year it's averaged just over 2%. So we do plan to continue that initiative in fiscal year 24 as it's worked out really well for us and has kept our reliability numbers up significantly. Another significant cost to us is our chemicals at our water treatment plant. Bear with me here. These also increase substantially. I think everyone can attest to why that might be with supply chain and things like that. Same thing at the wastewater treatment plant. Those chemicals, our process really hasn't changed much outside of the GAC filtration. However, those costs have increased well over 2 times, 78% in the water side and 43% in the sewer side.
Over what time period?
So that's comparing the last 3 fiscal years. So over about 3 years, we've seen those increases. And again, some of that on the water side is due to the increased use of carbon with that filtration process that we now use. So with labor costs, earlier this year, we did finalize our contract with the union, which represents the majority of our workforce with the board. It had expired at the end of last year. The new contract with the union does include wage increases of 5% the first year and then 4% each of the following 2 years. And so then in a labor market that we're seeing higher levels of turnover, we are also focusing on employee retention and how we can best retain high-quality employees as well as attract new employees of the same caliber. So that includes us looking at several different surveys throughout the nation to compare salaries and benefits and things like that to other utilities, especially those that are municipally owned like ourselves. So overall, the budget for all three funds has increased approximately $4.3 million. It's about 11.7% from last year. If we took out the capacity alone, the increase in the budget would be just over 5%. So that is by far the majority of our increase in costs next year. Just a couple other assumptions before we wrap up here. Capital expenditures, just a 25 kVA transformer that would power your home cost about $950 back in February of 2020. I believe the last one we purchased was $5,975, and the lead time on that is at least doubled. So if we had some type of significant storm that wiped out several of those, we're looking at issues in getting those on time, as well as significant increase in costs. The 34.5 kVA transformer that we purchased over here for the Southside sub, over here, cost about $488,000 back in 2017. We just purchased the exact same transformer for our Indian Mound substation, and it cost $1,469,000. It's an increase of about 200%. So we've seen similar increases in the cost of wire and other materials, obviously, as well. Again, our budget on there has a comparison from the current year to the next fiscal year. So you can see the changes on there. But overall, the projected reductions to are both the electric, water, and sewer funds are all projecting reduced contributions to our reserve funds, and that's due to the significant capital projects that we have planned for the next fiscal year, which is a separate process for approval. But happy to take any questions. Sorry it was a bit boring. That's how these things go sometimes.
A lot to absorb.
Would say for anybody, if you're interested in what goes into, arrive at your electric bill, take a look at the board's website, and there's probably 15 to 18 slides in there. And there's several components that go into that fluctuate wildly over sometimes just a day. So it's complex.
No doubt.
Well, all the information you shared is wonderful. Doing it for your fourth time this year, surely you have some practice at it. So I'm grateful for that too. But really, truly, I just know the next time I have any trouble sleeping, I'm going to have you come to my house and read me some financial statements.
Wow.
Oh, that's cruel.
I can do it.
Paul, thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thanks for keeping us on track out there, Paul.
Yeah.
So I need a motion to approve the Board of Public Works.
I don't think you need to move.
Okay. She put it in my
That's
notes.
going to take some time.
Thank you. Andy Dorian, Director of Central Services. Change order number 1, Huckleberry Tennis Pickleball Court projects.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem Council. My items are nowhere near as riveting as Paul's. So,
Poor Paul.
Poor Paul.
Poor Paul.
Poor Paul.
I'm feeling for you, man.
We just have a slight change order for the Huckleberry Tennis Pickleball Court. And talking with our park board president and some of the pickleball communities, we decided to add shadow lines to the north tennis court. So in the event that we host big tournaments, we can easily set that up. So it's the additional cost of $2,600 to do that. Okay. And they're actually hopefully going to start that this week. That project should be wrapping up. So,
Questions there? Resolution number 2463-23 to follow.
Second item is just the approval of the aggregates from Central Stone for the year. As you can see, everything went up slightly, which we expected. So nothing too crazy, though.
Motion?
Yes.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andy.
Thanks, Andy.
Jake Itnaki, Police Chief, Hannibal Police Department, sale of surplus property. Your first item. Evening, Chief.
Evening. I have 3 items tonight, so I'll start with the first one, which is just the surplusing of some used bulletproof vests. We have been collecting our expired ballistic armor since probably before I was even working there, for the last 20 years at least, without much recourse on where we can go to get rid of the old stuff. I think some of it has found its way into some construction applications to try to fortify some things here and there. But ultimately, we have stacks and stacks and stacks of expired body armor that we don't want to issue to our people. They're no longer good as far as the recommended rating on them, so we need to get rid of them. So our staff found a place, it's called Fiber Brokers out of Brent, Alabama. It's my understanding that they grind the Kevlar fiber down and actually, I think, use it to make other products like hoses and things like that. So it's going to have, it doesn't cost us anything for them to offload it. It just would require us to drive it to Alabama. So, which is cheaper than shipping it, because if you know anything about Kevlar, it is very heavy, and it'd be very expensive to ship, so it'd be cheaper to send somebody down there. So I'm just asking for permission to surplus. I don't have an exact number. I believe it's about 150 approximately. We have some stuff that's in 55-gallon drums.
So it's not actually a sale, right? It's supplying it to be repurposed.
Correct.
Okay.
So you just going to have one person do that?
Yes.
Yeah.
I have a quick question. Did I hear you right that they turned Kevlar vest into hoses?
That's what someone told me the other day. I'll have to.
I'm going to hold you to that. I want a Kevlar hose. Thank you. That's awesome.
Any other questions, Chief? If not, I need a motion to approve his request.
So moved.
Any discussion further?
It doesn't cost us anything, or we don't have to pay them anything to take it, do we?
Just going to cost us the money to drive down there and probably a hotel for a night.
Sounds good.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried. Next item.
The next 2 items are kind of semi-related here. The first is just a change in price. I believe I came before the last meeting, referenced the firearm purchase price. After we got ready to actually do the transfer and got into the meat and potatoes of it, we determined that there was going to be a price adjustment of $625 as represented due to us basically double counting a firearm that wasn't going to be traded in. So just asking for approval to make for the change be an increase of $625.
I'll make a motion to approve that.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.
And the last thing is we went out for sealed bids for lights for the new firearms. If you know anything about firearms, if you have to take your hand off it to hold a flashlight with your support hand, it greatly affects accuracy. So you can get lights that mount to your firearm. We learned that the state bidder might not be the lowest bid, so we went out for sealed bid on that. We received 2 responses, one from Primary Arms out of Houston, Texas for $7,004.04, another one from Clyde Armory out of Athens, Georgia for $7,146.68. Just asking for approval to accept the bid from Primary Arms for $7,004.04.
How much was the original bid on the firearm lights?
We didn't get an original.
You didn't get one?
bid.
Okay.
But I know that the state bidder, the state bid was going to be another $2,000, I believe, like $9,000.
Sounds like a cost-saving measure to me.
Okay. So I need a motion to approve.
I'll make the motion.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Melissa Cognell, Deputy Clerk, Special Election, held November 7th, 2023.
With the resigning of the Mayor Pro Tem, in accordance with provision for Section 1701 Charter of the City of Hannibal, a general election may be held for the purpose of electing a mayor, councilman, and other elective officers in the city for the purpose of deciding any questions that may be lawful submitted by electors At this time, I hereby request the council approve to give a first reading to Bill number 23-016, which authorizes a special election to be held Tuesday, November the 7th, 2023. The City of Hannibal Special Municipal Election Schedule provides the election of a mayor for a term to expire April of 2025. Candidate filing for the above-mentioned mentioned petitions will commence on Tuesday, July the 11th, 2023 at 8 a.m., concluding Tuesday, August the 1st, 2023 at 5 p.m. If you guys have any questions, I can answer.
Okay. Bill number 23-016 to follow. There's no questions. Charlie Phillips, 4th Ward Council Member, Stephen Franke, 3rd Ward Council Member, City Manager's Report.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Mayor Pro Tem, council, citizens. For the 10th time now in 10 months, we're asking the council to update the ordinance to require a monthly report from the city manager to our citizens and businesses in our public council meetings. This is an effort we at first expected to be painless and quick, and instead we've had to come back time and time again for 5 months now. In that time, we've been approached by scores of Hannibalians, nearly all of whom want to know what in the heck is going on with City Hall. Dozens and dozens of Hannibalians have shared their unsolicited outrage and confusion with us and want to know why the council is opposed to a mandatory monthly report from the city manager to the public. I wish I knew. As city councilmen, our duty is to serve Hannibal, and one of the main ways we do this is by offering oversight of city staff and advocating for accountability and transparency in City Hall. And we will continue to fulfill that duty and ask for this report until it is passed. And thank you very much.
Bill number 23-018 to follow. You have something on ward boundaries?
Yep. So Charlie and I have a memo on ward boundaries in the packet, which surely all of our fellow council members have read. But just for the sake of clarification, I'm going to walk us through some of the details. So let's go back to December of 2021. Council approved some processes and guidelines to redraw the ward maps using the 2020 census data. One of the parts of that process was to create a citizens committee. Unfortunately, that did not happen. Once council approved that, the process of redrawing the maps was delegated to the utility, which was then delegated to a third-party IT professional. One of the guidelines we approved in that December 2021 meeting was to, and I'm paraphrasing here, fully respect city councilmen incumbent addresses. Unfortunately, those guidelines and our addresses were not forwarded to the utility or to the third-party IT professional who created the maps. So a few months later, in February of 2022, the third-party IT professional drew up those maps and a rough draft of them and delivered them to City Hall. And now, what I believe to be by complete coincidence and accident, I was drawn out of my ward, which violates those guidelines that we approved in December of 2021. So realizing that, well, one more thing. And since that February 2022 time period, as far as Charlie and I can tell, the process hasn't really moved forward much. So recognizing that, Charlie and I come to council with a few solutions on how to finish the process while respecting those guidelines we approved in December of 2021. We have two different, what we think are good solutions. They're pretty different, to tell you the truth, and after speaking to the city attorney earlier today, he had a preference for one of them. I will, of course, let him explain that himself. But in the meantime, Charlie and I are ready to answer whatever questions you guys might have. Thank you.
Stephen,
What's up?
I was drawn out of mine as well.
You're getting fixed then.
Lisa, did you have anything?
I've got a couple of things here to clarify some facts. So the Board of Public Works previously created new boundary lines based on changes in the census block count. So when Matthew Jones, the Board of Public Works, was instrumental in obtaining electronic census block data from MU Extension, importing and mapping these figures, and calculating new ward populations in the 2010 census, basically the same request was made for assistance this time. So, as opposed to delegating it, the same request was made as the assistance that was provided last time. So, and the guidelines were appropriately not provided to HBPW and a third-party IT professional, as the maps requested were, and I quote here, to just create maps showing equal boundaries with equal distribution of citizens. There was no attempt to influence the map in any way, and in fact, a clean map drawn by an outside party which simply redistributes the population equally is the fairest starting point available. It would be appropriate to apply the guidelines to this map to finalize it with input from residents and the council making the final determination and adopting the maps. So that's a little clarification.
All right. Did you want to add anything, James?
Well,
Sorry, throwing you under the bus there, James.
no, it's not throwing in the bus. Councilman Franke and Councilman Phillips and I had some conversations earlier today, and they asked me in my opinion, and I've got a concern that we've got a special election for mayor coming up, and I'm worried that if we mess around with citizens committees, et cetera, it's going to delay the thing to the point where we won't have it done. My suggestion to them was that if staff was willing to work on it, and I'm not trying to force staff to do anything they don't want to, it would probably expedite the process if you didn't involve the citizens committee. I know the last time we did it, I don't think we messed with a citizens committee, but
I don't recall last time.
That was my thought. But again, I haven't gotten permission from staff to say, oh yeah, we want to take that on, we want to do it either. So,
Well, I too live 2 houses from being out of my ward, so, I mean, I haven't seen the map that you're talking about, so I could have been excluded from my ward as well, but what's council's pleasure on going forward with the map? Or what's the suggestion by?
So we had 2 suggestions, which was one, follow the original guidelines and recreate, or I guess create a citizens redistricting committee, which is what James was just mentioning, or just direct staff to work through the process and bring us back something to finalize in the short future. I spoke to the third-party IT person who does the maps just today. He said that if given corrections, he could have maps back to us in as little as 2 or 3 days. So that's what we got.
Are we okay to
I mean,
go forward with the staff, or would you like?
My suggestion would be, unless James, the mayoral race is a citywide election, and therefore it's not impacted by the ward boundaries, except for moving the polling places of the residents affected, which could cause some confusion by changing their long-standing polling locations. So
my concern was people know where they need to vote if we're going to have an election coming up.
Right.
And I know November seems like a long time away, but having committees and blah, blah, blah is going to take
part of the reason this process takes a fair amount of time is because you need to be doing it when there's not an election going on. So the least disruptive time for residents and potential candidates, the special election aside, would be to make the ward boundary changes during the summer. So that would be the normal time to do it, but now we have this special election that's cropped up.
Okay, well, I make a motion to authorize the city clerk and deputy city clerk or office of city clerk and the director of central services to forward the attached new guidelines as adopted by this council to the HBPW, the IT professional retained by the HBPW, to assist in the redistricting process in order to finish the ward boundary adjustment process consistent with the guidelines, so council can finalize the new maps before the August 1st deadline to sign up to run for mayor.
And this is necessary right now.
I think so.
Yeah, I'll second, and yes, it is necessary.
What's the rush, I guess?
This is the first memo that I've gotten for this. I have no idea what you're proposing for your boundary lines. Can you make that more clear?
We're actually directing staff to work with the IT professionals to redraw the maps based on a slightly tweaked version of the guidelines we first approved in December 2021. The tweak is related to something about shape and size, which I think is relatively inconsequential. That's the explanation.
So are you looking for input on what we think the shapes and sizes should be, or are we just going to leave that to them to do that?
No, I believe that the guidelines given to the IT professional and HPW would make a more fair and just boundary, again, following the established guidelines. Why those guidelines weren't given to the map drawing IT professionals is unclear to me.
Because the IT mapping professionals don't know what individuals would identify with what ward. That would be something that you would put on top of a map that equally distributes the ward population.
Individuals meaning the council members.
No, the people who live in the wards themselves. You're not supposed to disenfranchise them. That's part of the guidelines. And the IT person is not going to understand that. That is something that only the people involved can understand.
Okay, well, but in addition to that, other guidelines weren't followed.
No, because the request, yet again, was to just create maps showing each boundary with equal distribution of citizens.
Right.
And from there, then you can apply the guidelines and you can adjust the map, but otherwise you're going to be chasing your tail forever trying to figure out how to move the boundaries.
Are you saying we can't do both at the same time?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
We disagree and we made a motion to the contrary.
I just would like to know what the objective is.
To redraw the maps with the guidelines that we adopted December 2021 with a slight tweak and finalize the maps by August 1st. The motion I made, Colin?
Yep.
Is our second bullet point, verbatim.
Sure. Is there a deficiency as of right now?
Yeah, I got drawn out of my ward, and I guess Daryl did too.
So it can,
if I could, the maps they've done so far, all they are is take the city, separate it up into 6 equal wards with equal amounts of people in it without any regard to where the existing ward boundaries were. Obviously, that's not going to work. Obviously, that's not what the intent was, but you have to get a starting point to see where the people are, where an equal division of the people are. My concern is your timeline, and my concern is because you've got a special election, it's going to be problematic. I mean, when you start messing with committees and fighting with things on committees, et cetera, it's going to be tough to get things done ahead of that November deadline, I think. And I will concede that was a question that was specifically asked of me, but I agree with that point that I think it's going to be very, very problematic. Anytime you have a committee try to do things like this, anything you can do to expedite this process is going to be better, because I'm concerned that you're going to run up on this election and you're not going to have the redistricting done, or it's going to be problematic for people. They're going to find out the last second they've moved to a new ward et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I have no idea what we're looking at. I don't understand the process. I don't know the process. I just know how hard it is to get things accomplished in a short timeline with a committee.
Alan, just to dovetail with what James just said, the motion we made avoids the citizen redistricting committee that he's seeing the problem with. The motion we made is to direct staff to carry the process to the finish line and then ask us to approve, finalize it.
So we're just asking people to look at it. We're not wanting to change anything before any type of election, right? We're not.
We are doing that indeed, actually. That's exactly what we want.
So, but I guess where I'm confused, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, so you just want the map, you want us to review it, sign off on it, and that'll be our redistricting, basically in a nutshell. Just high level,
I'll get just slightly in the weeds. So what, in my mind, and after speaking to the IT folks, the exact process is as follows. If our motion is voted in the affirmative, Andy and Melissa will work with the IT folks to redraw those ward boundaries, keeping us in our wards, and then council would approve those final boundaries before August 1st. Once we do that, there's some back-end stuff that has to happen with the IT people in the county and something about legal descriptions of streets and that kind of stuff. But that is the process at a high-level nutshell.
Okay, so I don't disagree with you on that. I mean, I think obviously we need to get this taken care of. I kind of like the idea of the citizen committees, so you do have buy-in. For example, in my ward, around Lake Apollo, I have everything around it, but if you go, me and the kids ride the bike down Gemini, on the left-hand side of the street is my ward, and on the right-hand side is Councilman Beach's. Now, I understand that happens, it's going to happen everywhere in the city because all wards touch together. It's one small loop landlocked between 36 and Lake Apollo. For whatever reason, that little bitty chunk makes no sense. So when I have somebody up on satellite that calls me that drives right past my house every day and says, Councilman McCoy, I need the street sweeper up here, you're going to have to call Councilman Beach. I think there's, not to get too deep in the weeds, I think that there is some good benefit to having those committees. I wish that we weren't up against a deadline on the mayoral race. If it was a councilman election where boundary lines did matter, I would 100% support your August deadline. But I'd really like to have some input from the citizens. Mr. Ball spoke. He has a lot of properties and his family. They get drawn into the city, specifically in my ward. Things like that matter, and I think that it's important that those people have a voice too. So I'm not disagreeing with you. I think it's important. I think it stinks that we're up against a deadline like we are.
Yeah, I agree with most of what you said. And I mean, there's been 18 months to do that, and it just didn't happen. So now it's time to go another direction. Really simply.
I would rather see the committees as well, but we've got a motion and a second on the floor, and the motion was to have staff draw the map. So I will call the question. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
No.
I'm whatever on it.
I don't think anyone wants to be drawn out of their ward.
No.
Councilman Beach?
Yes.
Councilman McCoy?
Nobody's drawn out.
Mayor Pro Tem Dobson?
No.
Councilman Franke?
Yes.
Councilman Phillips?
Yes.
Councilman Welch?
I'm either one on it. I'm just going to go ahead and say yes.
Motion passed 4-3.
Good. So then,
Sorry, 4-2. I apologize.
okay, staff will,
Yeah.
I guess it falls on Andy
we're not
and
changing.
Melissa then?
Yeah, we're not changing anything, but we are putting the two most busy people that work at the city on this one problem.
And it takes it out of the hands
It
of
takes
the
it
people
off.
that we represent.
It takes it out. So I will check out what they propose.
Okay, moving on. Bill number 23-012, I need a motion to have the clerk give this bill a second reading.
So move.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries.
Bill number 23-012, an ordinance of the City of Hannibal vacating a tract of land known as Chateau Street, which is a part of the Buchanan Addition, City of Hannibal, Marion County, Missouri, second and final reading. Councilmember Beach?
Yes.
Councilmember McCoy?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Dobson?
Yes.
Councilman Franke?
Yes.
Councilman Phillips?
Yes.
And Councilman Welch?
Yes. I declare Bill number 23-012 duly approved and adopted on this day. And now Bill number 23-013. Need a motion to have the clerk give this bill a second reading.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries.
Bill number 23-013, an ordinance approving the fiscal year 2023-2024 budget and appropriating to the various departments, boards, commissions, and agencies of the city government of the City of Hannibal, Missouri for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2024. Second and final reading. Councilmember Beach?
Yes.
Councilmember McCoy?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Dobson?
Yes.
Councilmember Franke?
Yes.
Councilmember Phillips?
Yes.
And Councilmember Welch?
Yes.
I declare Bill number 23-013 duly approved and adopted on this day. Have Bill number 23-014. I need a motion to have the clerk give this bill a second reading.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried.
I apologize. John Ling came in the office and got the whole city clerk's office sick, so I apologize. Bill number 23,
Wasn't he here earlier?
that's a true. He even admitted that he came in and got us all sick. Bill number 23-014, an ordinance to pay the officers and employees of the City of Hannibal, Missouri for the fiscal year 2023-2024 as amended, second and final reading. Councilmember Beach?
Yes.
Councilmember McCoy?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Dobson?
Yes.
Councilmember Franke?
Yes.
Councilmember Phillips?
Yes.
And Councilmember Welch?
Yes.
I declare Bill number 23-014 duly approved and adopted on this day. Now have Bill number 23-016. I need a motion to have the clerk give this bill a first reading.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries.
Bill number 23-016, an ordinance of the City of Hannibal providing for a municipal election to be held Tuesday, November the 7th, 2023, for the purpose of electing a mayor of the City of Hannibal. First reading.
Now have Bill number 23-017. I need a motion to have the clerk give this bill a first reading.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries.
Bill number 23-017, an ordinance of the City of Hannibal amending the annual bid limits in accordance with Section 9.13B of the City of Hannibal Charter. First reading.
Now have Bill number 23-018. I need a motion to have the clerk give this bill a first reading.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Beach.
No.
Councilmember McCoy.
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Dobson.
No.
Councilman Franke.
Yes.
Councilman Phillips.
Yes.
And Councilman Welch.
No.
Motion fails
Motion
2-4.
Bill number 23-019. I need a motion to have the clerk give this bill an emergency reading.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.
Bill number 23-019, an ordinance amending the City of Hannibal fiscal year 2023, number 1, budget for authorizing budget amendments to increase the general funds DPW Police and Airport Departments appropriations and supplemental appropriations for sales tax gap, tourism, DARE, and investigation fund expenses as amended. Emergency reading. Councilmember Beach?
Yes.
Councilmember McCoy?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Dobson?
Yes.
Councilmember Franke?
Yes.
Councilmember Phillips?
Yes.
And Councilmember Welch?
Yes.
I declare Bill number 23-019 duly approved and adopted on this day. We now have resolution number 2463-23. Need a motion to have the clerk read this resolution, call the roll for adoption.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.
Resolution number 2463-23, a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute a $2,600 change order number 1 for the Huckleberry Tennis and Pickleball Court project. Councilmember Beach?
Yes.
Councilmember McCoy?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Dobson?
Yes.
Councilmember Franke?
Yes.
Councilmember Phillips?
Yes.
And Councilmember Welch?
Yes.
I declare resolution number 2463-23 duly approved and adopted on this day. Better get these candy. You're wearing out. Now have closed session in accordance with RSMO 610-021, subsections 1, 2, 3, and 13. I need a motion to go into closed session in accordance with those paragraphs, admitting myself, council members, city attorney, city clerk, city manager.
Okay.
Yeah.
Andy.
And Andy Dorian.
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Councilmember Beach?
Yes.
Councilmember McCoy?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Dobson?
Yes.
Councilmember Franke?
Yes.
Councilmember Phillips?
Yes.
And Councilmember Welch?
Yes.
Perfect.
Okay. Thank you, folks. We're in closed session.